The Arsenal dressing room of the 1990s was absolutely mental. It was ruled by a riotous ring of badly behaved boozers who called themselves the Tuesday Club. From machete-wielding gangsters to stints in the slammer, this is the tale of Gooners Gone Wild.
We were doing like drinking and taking sleeping tablets at the same time, like, and betting on who fell asleep last. I mean, you can't be a professional footballer like that anymore. I mean,
welcome back to The Upshot. I'm Jack. Zach is with me as ever.
Hello.
Hello, mate. We are joined by returning guest, long-standing friend of the pod, and, you know, the guy we call on when there's a bit of boozing on the menu with the pod. It's JP Lockwood.
Hello, Jack. Hello, Zach. Thanks
How
for
are
having
you?
me. Thanks for having me back. Apologies for the slight sniffly nose today. It's not self-induced and it's not Colombian.
You haven't been getting into the Tuesday Club swing this week.
Well, I actually have, to be honest with you. I'm quite rough today, but we'll be all right.
This isn't still a hangover from your trip to Berlin for the final.
Yeah, it's the hangover and the festival and, yeah, everything else in between.
It's been one of those summers, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's been summer.
Yes. But I'm retiring now. I'm focusing on podcasts and YouTube.
It's good. It's sort of, is it method acting where they like literally live the life of the people they're pretending to be? In a way, you've had quite a Paul Merson week.
I have, and I'm ready for this now.
Hopefully not too Paul Merson. Obviously, we're talking here about a sort of iconic period where the boozy era of football meets the more modern sort of Premier League glossy era. But this is sort of before it all became really professional. So I guess if I was thinking of another pod we've done that's most similar to, maybe the Crazy Gang one.
I feel like that one was a bit more sadistic.
Yeah.
This is kind of, I don't know, it's just a lot of boozing, a lot of partying, which, yeah, it was just the culture of football, I think, in the 80s and 90s, kind of up until Arsene Wenger took over at Arsenal. He was sort of the first one that really professionalised it and brought in, you know, rigorous diets,
water,
not drinking 15 pints midweek.
Yeah, took away cocaine and Mars bars. It's not complex, but at the time it felt like he was a revolutionary, as we will talk about. Do you think this was one of the best times to be a professional elite athlete, where like you could like, you earned a lot of money, you were a mega star, but you also could just like live the life of like a, you know, someone in their 20s having a laugh?
100%.
Yeah,
I would much rather have been a professional footballer in the 90s than today.
Despite making less money. Yeah,
they're just boring today. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying you should celebrate alcoholism and partying, but at least there was like a bit more character to the football players, I think. You know?
And there was a bit more like they were closer to the fans in their lives. So like you would bump into them in the pub.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I mean, like, they do still party, and obviously we talk about it when they do, but like it's basically all hidden away. It's all behind closed doors.
You kind of do get the odd funny character in modern day football. Like I find Cole Palmer really funny, but it's not like, you know, your Paul Mersons, your Tony Adams or whatever, you know.
We did that story a few months ago about Marcus Rashford's bender in Belfast that was just the most depressing insight
Tragic.
into... Yeah, it was like he like flew over there, they booked out a whole Italian restaurant, like the upstairs floor, it was just entirely booked out for him and his mate, and they like brought their own portable speaker along and just like got some waitress that they'd met in a restaurant earlier in the day to come out with them, and I think she had to like give up her phone and stuff. It was just intensely depressing.
Whereas this era, it's got like the anarchy of just like, well, they're just going to the pub
having
every
it
weekend, having it.
Yeah,
I guess we should say it does get a bit, well, very sad for, you know, the likes of Tony Adams, Paul Merson, who, you know, basically this wild lifestyle turns up and ends up being an addiction, and we'll discuss that. Like, let's just mention straight up that we are going to cover that stuff, and like we recognise that there was a sad side to it. But you know, generally this is a fun story, a lot of hilarious stuff in between, and also this is like an Arsenal team who are winning a lot, right? Like we're not talking about you know, a bunch of blokes who ruined their careers. Like this is one of the best football teams of the era.
Yeah, I guess it's quite interesting. Like within the anarchy of all of that Tuesday Club and all of the drinking, there was still this unbelievably successful team that absolutely smashed it even after George Graham left, you know. So
is that because everyone was doing similar? So like there was no handicap for boozing.
I guess you're just in it, you're all in it together. Probably other than Martin Keown, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone was just like completely in the trenches.
Yeah, Lee Dixon as well. I guess we'll talk about some of the normies, the straights, who couldn't be sucked in, but quite a few were.
But they sort of said as well that was part of the secret behind their success was how close they were
Yeah.
as a team. Like it, because they had such a close relationship, because they spent all their time together getting absolutely battered. That was, I mean, maybe this is the story.
I don't know, if you go like a bender with your mates, I suppose there's a bit of brotherhood there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Are you ready to play Crystal Palace away the next day?
But in any workplace, it is quite bonding. But then you're also just like, you could still be really fucking good, couldn't you?
Yeah.
There are plenty of successful sports teams who fucking hated each other.
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls, for example.
Yeah.
Should we get into it, Zach? Do you want to take us back to the start? And,
Yeah, so our story begins in 1986 when Arsenal appoint George Graham as their manager. They'd actually offered the job to Alex Ferguson. He was at Aberdeen at the time, but he rejected Arsenal.
Is that because he wanted United?
Well, it was that summer that he went to United anyway, so I'm not sure exactly. I think, perhaps he knew that they were interested and had some contact with them before, I don't know, but could have been very different if he'd ended up at Arsenal. So George Graham takes over. Arsenal at that point hadn't won the league for 15 years, and he inherited quite an old team which had, let's say, a penchant for boozing. So in the middle of his first season, they go away on this training camp to Portugal, and one night the players end up in this nightclub, and there's a group of US Marines in there as well, and the players and the Marines both basically trying to chat up the same group of girls, and this argument breaks out, and there's a bit of argy-bargy, and the Arsenal players get kicked out, and they're pursued down the road outside the club by these US Marines in a car, and
like a Humvee, open top with a gun mounted.
probably was, but Scottish striker Charlie Nicholas lobbed a vodka bottle that he was carrying at the car and smashed its windscreen, so the car veered off the road, and the Arsenal players legged it back to their hotel and were woken up the next morning by the police at the door.
Probably a relief it's the police.
Yeah, not the Marines.
Not the army.
Apparently George Graham got sent a message. He was on a golf course and got this message through to him that half of his team had been arrested for attempted murder.
Oh, did they arrest them?
Yeah, they got arrested for it.
So
Arsenal eventually had to pay the Marines off £2,000.
It's quite a lot back
Quite a lot
then.
of them back then,
Yeah.
Is that how it works? You just get them to drop the old attempted murder for money?
It's probably better than going to court against the US Army.
I reckon now a professional footballer versus a US Marine, the footballer's always winning in the chatting up girls stakes. But back then, Charlie Nicholas was a bit of a sort of heartthrob playboy nightclub fixture.
Judging by their
Charlie, wasn't it?
Yeah, Champagne Charlie. He was a wild bloke, right?
Yeah. I think the US Marines are probably in better shape than the
Arsenal players. Yeah, weren't so many six packs in football back then, apart from off special brew.
Yeah. Anyway, after that incident, George Graham sets about refreshing the team. So he moves on some of the older players and brings through a new generation of players. So he's thinking that these youngsters will really embody the professional values that Arsenal FC want to represent. So he makes Tony Adams the captain at 21, and in 1989 Arsenal finally end their league drought. So a lot of that was down to this rock solid defence that they had: Tony Adams, Lee Dixon, Nigel Winterburn, Steve Bold. But sprightly centre backs aren't George Graham's only managerial innovation. So he also decides to give his squad Wednesdays off. So I guess the idea behind this is that, having a day off during the week, it will mean that, they're fresh for the weekend fixtures. But in reality, it means that Tuesday nights descend into, as one player describes it, relentless drinking. And, we said Arsenal pre-George Graham were no saints, but this new generation put them to shame very quickly. So they turned up to training on Tuesday, dressed already for a night out, and apparently the coaches sort of knew something was up, because ordinarily they'd be turning up in their Arsenal tracksuits, and then suddenly Tony Adams is there in his sequin waistcoat and Dolce & Gabbana zoot suit.
Snakeskin loafers.
Suits. So does George Graham kind of know what's going? I think he's done.
He must know.
He doesn't really care, does he?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just how it was.
Yeah.
Maybe he fancied a night out on Tuesday as well. I don't know. But anyway, training finished at lunchtime, and after that, players would head straight to the pub around the corner. They'd spend the whole day there boozing, and then head on out into London to nightclubs. So Tony Adams was the ringleader of this group. Paul Merson, Perry Groves, Nigel Winterburn, all key figures. And this group give themselves a name, which has gone down in legend, the Tuesday Club.
I actually thought it was something to do with the Agatha Christie novel.
What's that?
You know, it's a Tuesday Club. Yeah, they all meet up and like do a different story every week, and it's like a really famous novel. And I thought, oh, maybe there's some narrative here, and we've got some readers in the Arsenal team or something like that.
It's Paul Merson's favourite book.
Further off.
It's actually a book club. Yeah.
It's sort of like a club.
Maybe that's what they told George Graham. So we do like to get dressed up for
book club.
You know the Agatha Christie one, yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, it's slightly different vibe there, I think. So Paul Merson said that he'd normally have at least 15 pints on these nights out. He said, we wouldn't stop until we were paralytic.
Just like the book.
I heard that it was 1 pint every 12 minutes unless you were sick, and then they'd give you one every 15 minutes. That was like
3 minutes.
Yeah,
grace.
3 minutes.
That's how long it takes to be sick.
On a Tuesday.
1:30.
Got Wednesday off. Yeah, because it's like, it's not just like, oh, we go out Tuesday night for a few beers. It's like training ends at 12 and then it's all day and all night.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't imagine that many people being out at 1:30 on a Tuesday.
Quite often the stories are just them.
Yeah. I guess in your head you've got this like celebration going on. It's absolutely booting off down the pub, but it is probably just like...
It's quite sad.
Yeah.
Just in a back room.
You and some...
On this sticky carpet.
Yeah.
Tony Adams, obviously one of the ringleaders, apparently his party trick was smashing bottles of booze over his own head.
Nice. How fucked have you got to be to do that and not?
That's what happens.
1 pint every 12
minutes.
Surely you're coming in, I know you're not in on Wednesday, but you're coming on Thursday and they're like, your head is bleeding. Gashed.
Yeah. So maybe that's how he got a reputation for being such a like knuckle-headed defender.
Yeah, blockhead.
Yeah. He also apparently was notorious for pissing himself. So there's one story of him passing out on Paul Merson's sofa bed, pissing himself, and then waking up in the morning, saying goodbye, leaving, and not even mentioning the bed.
Just let it dry.
Paul Merson's girlfriend comes.
Probably the best way.
Let it air.
Yeah. Did he know?
Yeah. Paul Merson though was one of the maddest. So his autobiography doesn't spare any of the details about it. So this is the cover of it.
We'll link to this in the show notes.
We'll
Do you want to describe it for listeners?
Yeah. So it's a picture of a beer can. The title of the autobiography is How Not to Be a Professional Footballer by Paul Merson. And the cover is a picture of a beer can with Paul Merson's face on it, sort of grinning.
Is that an Amstel or a Stella?
Yeah, I'd say Amstel, isn't it? The white and red, yeah.
Amstel, yeah. So just to give you a sense of what he got up to, here are some of the chapter titles. Do not drink 15 pints and crash your car into a lamppost. Do not shit on David Seaman's balcony. Do not bet on Scotland on your wedding day. Do not go to a Detroit gay bar with Paul Ince and John Barnes. Do not wander around nightclubs trying to score coke. Do not let Gaza move into your house.
Definitely don't do that.
No. Do not tell Harry Redknapp you're going to rehab only to bunk off to Barbados for a jolly.
Great story.
Yeah. The shitting on Seaman's balcony one, I flicked to that chapter to have a look. Paul Merson's one of that generation of footballers who thinks the funniest prank in the world is just like shitting on people's stuff. And apparently Seaman was known as a bit more straight, didn't really booze much. And on a pre-season tour once, he just decided it would be really funny. His room was at the room above Seaman's, and so he just hung off the edge of his balcony and just shat below.
Ostracised him for being a straight edge.
Yeah, and then apparently he heard Seaman just scream later. He was by the pool and he was like, we were just loving it. What is wrong with you?
I'm sure, was it Paul Merson as well? There's another story of one of them, they were away on tour and shitting in someone's pillowcase.
Yeah, it was him. It was him.
And he's just like, tells this story. He's like, oh, you should have seen his face.
Yeah,
you should have seen his face when he found it. It's like, you just shat in his pillowcase.
Watching him just lie his head on his pillow and seeing his face. Like, what's wrong with you?
It's just horrible.
How did he end up in a Detroit nightclub with Paul Ince?
England duty.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, there's an England tour of America where they lose to the USA in the friendly because they're just like out getting pissed and stuff. And there's a night in a gay club.
Oh,
He described some scene of watching a stripper like get on his knees and nosh off another stripper or something. And he was like, I didn't realise it was a gay club till then. Something like that. I skimmed that bit.
Yeah, I don't know. Pretty bad life. But apparently, as we said, George Graham sort of knew that all this was going on. And yeah, just didn't care because the players would still turn up to training on a Thursday.
That's one of those. As long as we're winning on Saturday.
Yeah,
I don't want to know.
There's a story of Niall Quinn tells that they were in a huddle at training one day and George Graham turned to him and was like, Niall, you smell like booze. And Niall just replied, well, you would too, boss, if you drunk as many beers as I did last night. And everyone just starts laughing, including George Graham.
Right, so it's encouraged.
Yeah. And it was the same after games on a Saturday as well. So they'd head straight to the Bank of Friendship pub, which was around the corner from Highbury, and just neck pints with fans before hitting the town.
That is pretty fucking awesome that in the early 90s, like the team that's winning the league, if you're a fan, you could just go and drink with the players in the pub. Yeah, that feels so alien now.
You're just never going to get that now, are you?
Yeah, it's
not
great.
happening.
Yeah. And then Sundays as well, they were due back. So the Tuesday club was a rule they had to be at the pub by midday. And Tony Adams insisted that they were not allowed to leave until 7 p.m.
On a Sunday?
On a Sunday when they'd been out the night before. A 7-hour stint at the pub.
The captain.
Soften the blow a bit.
Yeah,
soft landing.
Yeah.
There was a story from years later, actually, when Adams was England captain. And so Sunday, they're in the pub as usual, and Tony announces that he has to leave at 3 p.m. instead of 7. All the players are pretty horrified by this because, if they tried to do that, then Tony would probably strip him naked and tie him to a lamppost. But he insists, like, no, I've got to go, I've got important business. And at 3 p.m, this car arrives to pick him up and he reveals that he's going off to do the FA Cup draw. So the players are like, oh, great, like, we'll be able to watch this on TV. Terry's pissed already. And Adams comes out with Terry Venables, who's the England manager. So it's England manager and England captain. And Terry Venables is there just looking like really sharp in this iron suit, like looking absolutely perfect, and camera pans to Tony Adams, who's there just like
steaming,
he's steaming, like shirt hanging out, probably done his buttons up wrong, like tie hanging down.
Live on BBC One.
And it's his turn to pick out a ball, and he like sticks his hand into the bowl, and apparently he's just spinning his hand around for ages and ages, and then just like,
what are we doing?
It's like, Tony, you got
right, ball, please, Tony.
Pick a ball. Eventually, he picks this ball out, and he's like trying to read it. He's like, it's 31, and there's an awkward silence, and the draw master's like, Tony, there is no 31. And he's like, that's 13, Tony.
Yes.
So yeah. Anyway, rewinding back to the early 90s, and it's not all fun. So one summer Sunday in 1990, Tony Adams is at a barbecue in Southend, and this being Tony Adams, he gets absolutely battered at the barbecue. He thinks he's all right though. He's like, I can handle my drink. So he decides to drive home, and he's driving through this sleepy privet-hedged corner of suburbia. He crashes his Ford Sierra into a garden wall at 70 miles an hour, writes off the car, writes off the wall as well. And the police...
Die.
Yeah, 70 miles an hour. Pretty. Through this, like, you look at pictures of it, it is just like a suburban street.
Why was he doing 70?
I mean,
probably live on BBC One reading fucking numbers out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So the police turn up, obviously, and arrest him, and it ends up in court, and he is sentenced to 4 months in jail. So obviously this is a massive story. This is the Arsenal captain, drink driving, sent to jail, which obviously is a bad thing to do. But it's also tough on Tony, like going to be a big change in lifestyle. While he's inside, he says he lost a stone in weight. He's working out 4 times a day because there was nothing else to do, basically. But
was he quite skinny anyway? So was it like a good stone lost, or do you reckon it was like...
I mean, he's probably
with
got
the beer belly. Was
yeah, true.
Sounds like jail might have been quite good for him.
Yeah,
loving it.
Well,
actually,
could have been. There was. So he says that he lost all this weight because the food was shit as well. But he manages to befriend the prison chef, who happens to also be the goalkeeper for the prison football team. And this chef would sneak him whole roast chickens.
Nice.
I don't know how
would you
he'd
sneak
manage
it?
that, just like under his prison overalls. Just like greasy.
You've got like a carcass to get rid of afterwards.
It's good friend to have though.
Currency. That's worth a couple of phone cards. That.
Honk on a spice pipe.
a cupped handful of hand sanitizer, 1% booze,
Sprinkler spice.
He's also, while he's in there, befriended by a burly credit card fraudster called Scotchy, who manages to sort him out an illicit bottle of vodka.
Nice.
So he's doing well.
He's doing pretty
I guess
well.
if you're a professional footballer, like, you know, you're going to get treats in prison.
Well, you are, but apparently Scotchy also has to save him from a gang of Scousers who plan to kneecap him.
Christ.
Does it get quite close to happening? It's Scotchy sort of arrive with his.
I don't know exactly. He says, he says that Scotchy had
it cuts
maybe
both
caught.
ways.
I think Scotchy's sort of big cheese in the prison.
Yeah, Scotchy's
if he's
top-
sorting people
top
out
boy.
with bottles of vodka.
So it basically cuts both ways. You get a lot of love, but you also it's a bit like
I guess you're maybe who knows, he might have
you just don't want to be out on your own, do you? In prison, you need to
done
find
something
your people.
in a Liverpool game. Yeah, exactly.
Scousers hate Cockneys anyway. That's
True.
why they're probably going to
Yeah.
do it.
And then he's
You know what I mean?
Arsenal
fucking
captain.
Arsenal
Yeah.
captain, yeah.
But he's protected. He's got his chicken and he's got his vodka.
Yeah.
What's for dinner, Tony?
It's not Scotchy. It's got a sharpened toothbrush to fight off the Scousers.
Chicken wing and a shot of vodka.
Yeah.
Fuck, so he does 4 months.
He
And
does
also-
know he actually only does 2 months. He's
Right.
released
But
after 56 days.
And he doesn't stop boozing after that, does he? I mean,
it sounds like he was carrying on boozing while he was inside.
Yeah, good point.
Which, I mean, to be fair, in hindsight, if Scotchy hadn't
Yeah, giving him
been
that.
there,
Yeah, I'm not sure we can blame Scotchy for
No,
what went
we
on.
are.
But I'm surprised Arsenal weren't like at this point like, right, you need to sort your shit out now. You've just been to jail. You're a captain.
yeah.
Quite a few players from that period went to jail and it was just sort of swept under the
Yeah,
rug,
well,
wasn't
like
it? Ian Wright, was
yeah. So Ian Wright went to jail. He obviously joins Arsenal in '91. He went to jail before that when he was playing non-league, and also Ian Wright's offence was like driving without it. He hadn't renewed his fucking insurance or something.
It wasn't even drink driving.
Yeah.
Or anything. It was just like it was I think he was driving an untaxed vehicle.
It was a pussy
you
jail
really
sentence.
don't
I
just
can't
go to
believe
jail. for
you
that.
wouldn't get jail for that now. I don't think there's no space.
He ignored 3 letters. And then,
Yeah. Weird Ian Wright, like he doesn't come up that much in the Tuesday Club thing. He obviously was like quite wild on the pitch. He'd really get in fights and stuff, but I think he was actually quite well behaved. I think that he always says the jail thing really like turned his life around. And then obviously he went to Palace and did so well. But like he doesn't really feature in this story, even though he's there for the whole time.
Also, he was probably very young, and then when Wenger came in, that was when he really started to kick off, and then obviously Wenger was there
But still, he doesn't seem like a big boozer.
cracking the whip.
Yeah. Anyway, while Adams is in the slammer, on the outside, it is very much business as usual for the Tuesday Club. And they've recruited a new member, summer signing Jimmy Carter. So Jimmy joins from Liverpool, and after his first day of training, they're all like, well, you come in Tuesday Club. And he's like, well, what's Tuesday Club? And they're like, let me show you.
It's a book club.
They take him out. Yeah,
you're familiar with the novels of Agatha Christie.
You've read the book, yeah? Anyway, Jimmy's obviously like keen to sort of impress these guys and live up to his billing as a new member of the Tuesday Club. And so they're in this packed London pub, you know, when you're like really pressed up against everyone, getting to the toilet's an absolute nightmare. But somehow Jimmy frees up enough space to just whip down his trousers and piss all over his teammate, Perry Groves. Just in this packed pub. Which again, it's like, imagine being in a pub, some packed city pub, and then an Arsenal new signing starts pissing on someone.
Also, it's quite a confident move to do on your first day.
Yeah.
First day meeting all your new colleagues.
Sets the tone.
Yeah, Tuesday Club though.
Yeah.
Sets the tone. He's in.
Anyway, he is barred from that pub as a result. You won't be surprised to hear. Poor old Perry Groves, his story is quite interesting because he wasn't much of a drinker before he joined. So Paul Merson says that Groves was basically teetotal, but they slowly sort of like dragged him in.
Within 12 hours. He was pissing on people in pubs.
No, Perry Groves is the one who gets pissed on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But apparently, so Perry Groves' thing is that he was kind of teetotal, and they drag him to the pub anyway. And he tricked them into thinking he was a big boozer. So he'd stay out with them the whole time. And, he'd be getting through the pints, so everyone just thought he was a huge boozer. But actually, he was secretly pouring them into plant pots, just like when no one's looking. Eventually, though, they rumble him. And so the Tuesday Club start guarding the plant pots in the pubs.
It's like one on each plant pot.
And they're all like really marshalling. If he goes to the bogs, they're all like going with him to make sure he doesn't tip it away. And apparently he just ends up paralytic. And pretty soon his tolerance goes up and he's a core member of the Tuesday Club. And that's how it happens. They literally force you. Weird thing though, amid all this carnage, captain in jail, people pissing on each other on their first day, Arsenal are still like giants in English football. They win the league again in 1991. And we said this before, like a lot of the players credit the Tuesday Club with that league title because they were just so close.
Didn't they win it on a Friday night? It was it was the first ever league match. It was the first ever, Friday night live match. So, Merson said they went out from like Friday till Tuesday.
When the Tuesday Club kicks in.
But you just won the league. Friday night, everyone's watched it. You're gonna go on a massive.
That one's fair.
Yeah,
and then you've got all summer.
Yeah,
summer must have been.
School's out.
Yeah, kick it up a notch. And actually, after that league title, things are about to get worse, much, much worse. Because along with Ian Wright joining, who's as I said, not a particularly wild member of the club, 1992 is the year that Ray Parlour makes his debut for the first team. So he'd come up through the academy, but once he hits the first team, the man who becomes known as the Romford Pele is an instant Tuesday Club legend.
He's built for it.
He really is. So there's one story. So one night, Parlour and Tony Adams are on a bender and they end up in Pizza Hut in Hornchurch. I was thinking, what time does Pizza Hut shut?
It sounds like the Frank Lampard story with the bowling alley. It's just so random.
Yeah. It's like, they're not going for like really glamorous spots, are they? Pizza Hut. Anyway, when they get in there, they run into a group of Spurs fans who are heckling them. And they're lobbing carrots at Tony Adams because his nickname was Donkey. I'm like, where have they got carrots from in Shropshire? Is it? Do you know that? You
should be lobbing the bottomless ice cream.
But then there is that salad bar, and you do get grated carrot in it. So do you think it's handfuls of grated carrot?
Oh,
Donkey!
Potato salad.
Yeah. Anyway, at this point, Ray loses the plot and he grabs a fire extinguisher and just empties it all over these Spurs fans.
Nice.
Also, actually, reading about the story, I read somewhere that Ray and Tony also fired a flare gun into the disabled toilets. Where have they got that from?
Never leave home without one.
Yeah. Flare gun's like when you're at sea, isn't it? It's like you can shoot a flare into the air so it goes high up. I guess they've just got all sorts of weapons on them. There's another story where Ray and Tony go out boozing on Christmas Eve, and Ray's like, Tony, I need to get a present for my mum. I've left it a bit late, but like I'm just going to hit the shop, so let's not stay too late. But Tony just keeps making him stay for one more drink, and eventually it's too late and the shops are shut. So instead they try and nick a giant plant pot from outside the pub. Like those big ones, you're like trying to roll it. Apparently they get about 10 metres and the police turn up and just bang them up. Midnight, wake up in jail on Christmas Day.
Didn't the
experience well?
The policeman called them Bill and Ben the flower pot men.
Like a lot of these guys in their book say that like we were on like first name terms with the local police. So obviously the cops know them because they're famous, but they know the old Bill's names as well because they're just like
out every week.
Yeah. And the police are just sort of like, it's just part of the job that like, you just bang up the Arsenal lot occasionally.
Yeah.
I like to think when Ray Parlour was coming through the Arsenal Academy that, all the other young players are like idolising Ian Wright for his finishing skills. And he's just like young Ray Parlour just looking up at the Tuesday Club. Tony Adams
pissing himself.
Just like with a smashed head and like covered in piss. Just like, that'll be me one day, Dad.
I'll be like you.
Speaking of Ray Parlour in the Academy, have you seen the picture of him aged 12? I'll link to it in the show notes, but we're looking at it now. He literally looks 40.
Wow.
I think he basically did all his aging.
That looks nuts.
Like, his face is like haggard.
Yeah, he looks about 40.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He's 12 there. So like he's probably getting. He looks
like he's smokes 40 a day.
Yeah, but it is a bit like, when you look at pictures from during the war, and the kids do just look older.
They've seen things.
They've seen shit. They're smoking a lot.
But you look at the other 12-year-olds in that picture with him, and they all look like they're 12.
There's an air of innocence about all of them, apart from Ray,
right?
Who looks like he's
Even
about
the pose,
to headbutt you.
He's got his pound on the snooker table. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's a great pick. Also, it's weird. It's like he hasn't actually aged that much since then, to be fair to him. He's just a very
did all of his aging before.
Yeah, didn't we talk about there was a snooker player, Cliff Thorburn, who's like that as well?
Yeah,
just
Cliff Thorburn syndrome.
It's more Ray Parlour syndrome, I think. So when Tony Adams gets out the slammer, obviously you've got the likes of Ray Parlour in the team. There's new competition on the hell-raising front, and so Adams has to up his game, and he certainly does on the day of the 1994 FA Cup final, which Arsenal are not playing in. And that means that Tony can go on a pub crawl around Clapton with his mates. And he ends up absolutely battered in a bar watching the game. And then him and his mates, they load up on a crate of beer and they get in the back of a minibus and head to Billericay in Essex, where they've got a private room rented in the Crown pub. And they've ordered in a succession of strippers who turn up. One of the strippers is dressed as a bride. Which is nice. You can imagine people coming up to her and congratulating her.
Wholesome.
Yeah. Again, something quite 90s about that. It's quite a sort of fancy dress era, isn't it? Anyway, the antics with the strippers make it into the tabloids. Here's a press report from the time. It says, with the party in full swing, a stripper clad in PVC grabbed the star from the crowd. Adams, it was claimed, ended up on all fours on the floor, totally naked. More than once he's said to have clutched the stripper and fondled her breasts as his Arsenal pals yelled, "Handball!" It's alleged that the party finished when the stripper massaged Adams on the buttocks. What is that?
That's a great bit of journalism.
Yeah, it's nicely written, isn't it?
Yeah. I like this is the party ended when once he massaged him in the buttocks. No, this has gone too far.
Yeah, it's like full time. Let's get it off.
What is that? He's just on all fours. There's just a buttocks massage. I swear I read a version of this somewhere where she's flicking his balls.
Nice.
Just flick. I just had this image of Tony Adams with quite red bollocks hanging down quite low.
Just having the best time ever.
Is he pretending to be a donkey?
I think is it a donkey thing?
You can imagine him having
goat.
massive bollocks, can't you?
Yeah, but quite distended, quite long. I don't know why.
Distended bollocks.
That's prison will do that to you. Yeah. Anyway, that Adams story ends up all over the press. So at this point, it's just like an open secret that Adams is a party animal. I guess no one really minds.
It's celebrated, I guess, back then.
Yeah. Unlike on this podcast, we're taking it really seriously.
Very seriously.
We will take it seriously.
We will.
Shortly. Anyway, that 94 season actually was quite a bad one for Arsenal. They finished 12th. Anyway, obviously, the boozing's probably dragging them down a bit, but it's not the only part of their lifestyle that doesn't quite match up to today's professional standards. On the way back from away matches on the Arsenal coach, there were two waiters who would serve the players prawn cocktails and roast dinners.
That is so random.
Is that really what you want on a coach on the
Very
on the M6?
Yeah, just like on the M6 and someone's at the front of the bus carving a beef Wellington.
Do you reckon there's an oven on the bus?
Are they getting them from the canteen and then they're covering them?
Must do. Yeah. Bit of tinfoil.
Surely there's some spilled gravy on that drive.
But then they must have shitloads of it because the players would have eating contests on who could have the most dinners. So this was a fixture of every away game back. That would be the eating contest. And they would just eat dinners to the point where people were puking. Apparently there was one game, they're on the way back from Newcastle, obviously long drive, and someone drove past and just spotted the Arsenal first team, just stopped by the roadside, bent over, all just puking from their dinners, and probably a ton of booze as well. Steve Bold was the undisputed champion. Apparently he would regularly eat 9 roast dinners, which makes me think that they did have an animal carcass up front because they wouldn't bring that many.
It's like doing a hog roast
on the middle bit of the bus.
A big Tupperware of roast potatoes, big vat of gravy on the boil. Could these buses have kitchens, a bit like Rockstar tour buses?
I don't reckon
I don't think they did then.
In a way, I'm more baffled by that than the boozing.
Yeah.
And then obviously they're washing that all down with just crate of lager each.
Were there any foreign players in the team? So I can imagine these quite cultured French players being at the back of the bus and just this hog roast is going on in the front. They're just
really overcooked meat.
Having a couple of Vogue cigarettes.
Yeah. But amid all the carnage of the Tuesday Club, there is one man who manages to keep himself out of trouble, and that is goalkeeper David Seaman. But even in 1995, he is drawn into its sordid orbit when he ditches his wife and childhood sweetheart to shack up with the Highbury receptionist.
Oh, really?
As you do.
I always heard it was someone from the marketing team, the promotions team.
I think she started out as a promotions girl, like, I don't know.
What does that mean?
And
You're like on the pitch handing like, an award,
probably that.
yeah.
And eventually graduated to Highbury receptionist,
Nice.
and then graduated to
David Seaman's
wife of the
wife.
goalkeeper.
Oh,
yeah.
is it wife?
Yeah, so he leaves his childhood sweetheart, divorces her, and gets together with the
Okay,
the
so it's
Highbury
not Mr.
receptionist.
Squeaky Clean.
David,
then.
they
dirty dog.
wow. So they stay together until 2006, when David Seaman goes on Dancing on Ice,
That's where you find love.
and then he then leaves her for his dance partner.
I mean, it is. I mean, I'm mainly thinking of Strictly here, but it is mental how many celebs go on there and then
Yeah.
just leave their
It's
other
just a
half.
dating show, basically,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Paul
Cheating.
Merson's about to do Strictly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Signed him up. He's the only person whose name I recognise.
Really?
Obviously, Strictly's.
Tony Adams did it last year, didn't he?
Yeah. Did he remain faithful? He hasn't suffered the Strictly
as far
curse.
as- as far
Obviously,
as I know.
Strictly's in a bit of a weird place, isn't it?
Go on.
Well, no, they've had like a big bullying scandal.
Oh,
Have you
have
not,
they?
you not followed that?
No.
Do you think I just went like, the last few years, the Char didn't go very well last year. Bruno didn't love it.
It just hasn't hit the highlights of 2019 for me.
I just think they need to get rid of the Charleston and bring in something a bit more modern. No, but I think like they're saying like, oh, we're a bit worried like about the future of it because like there's been a bit of bullying and stuff. So
Yeah.
you know, why not chuck in Britain's most troubled former sportsman, Paul Merson, one of the most emotionally fragile people on TV. That should help.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. So what's old Dave Seaman's a dirty dog?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Not a boozer, but a dirty dog.
it's apparently so. It seems that way.
So he
Has she-
got with her and he's divorced her now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so they were together
right.
from 95 until 2006, till this Dancing on
There's
Ice.
something so of its time of the
It's
type
romance
of,
on the ice.
the type of cheating he's done there, which is like in the 90s, it's like you leave them for like the promotions / receptionist, and then in 2006, it's like you leave them for some trash TV
Yeah.
B-list version of Strictly.
And these
Yeah.
days it'll be some Insta hottie.
yeah,
Yeah.
just someone in
Somebody
his
who's
DMs.
messaged
Celebrity
him.
Love
Do you
Island.
think Dave
Yeah.
Seaman is getting like naked nudes in his DMs? Probably not.
Not now. Maybe then.
But then I guess there were no DMs. You had to go on Dancing on Ice.
You got a letter.
Yeah, you would.
Got a
wouldn't you?
written letter.
Get some knickers in the post.
A letter's in a knickers in a letter. I love that.
yeah.
Actually, while we're on the subject of romance, there was a story from Paul Merson's book. He said that he once asked out Kylie Minogue at the Brit Awards.
How did that go?
So apparently he sort of, I think he was pretty pissed. So he was like trying to make his way over to Kylie Minogue, and as he was sort of whispering in her ear, and this bouncer came over and she's like pulled him off. He's like, "Get away, Paul, get
I
away."
thought he was like a regular punter.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll go.
Autographs later, mate. Fuck
A
off.
picture, you know, like that meme of the guy and the girl in the club, and the guy's like yelling in her ear. She's just looking so bored, and Paul Merson's like, "Yeah," and then Ray's passed it to me, and I've just fucking buried it.
And then me and Tony nicked this plant pot.
And Gaffer's gone, "Yeah, you can go out Tuesday, but just say hello to that Kylie."
And then I shattered his pillowcase.
That's good.
Kylie Minogue, she's horrified. So, by the mid-90s, though, things are starting to go a little bit wrong. So, Ray Parlour gets glassed in the face in a brawl at Butlins Bognor Regis.
Where else?
So, apparently he gets into an argument there and was giving it the big un, a bit of, do you know who I am? I'm Ray fucking Parlour. Which, at Butlins Bognor Regis, gets you a glass in the face.
Yeah.
Riley should anywhere really.
Yeah.
See, again, they're at Butlins,
Yeah, I
Bognor
mean,
Regis.
I was just thinking that, like, how you just never get that today. I guess Butlins was bigger back then, wasn't it? Like,
Does he have kids? That's the only reason I could see.
No, I
him
think that he
being there.
was 21 at this point. So.
Right, oh, he's still quite young.
Yeah.
yeah,
You think like you're at least in Spain.
yeah. I guess it wasn't a thing back then. Maybe it
Well-
was. You have to go to Spain. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, some of their stories do take place in slightly more exotic destinations. So, at the end of the 1995 season, Arsenal go on tour to East Asia. They do play in a few different countries, and their final match is in Hong Kong against Rangers, and they win 4-0. So, after the game, last night of the tour, they decide to go out to celebrate, and where else do they end up but the Hard Rock Cafe in Hong Kong?
It's never glamorous, is it?
Somewhere familiar, lads.
Angus Steakhouse.
Yeah, so after getting through their double cheeseburger, they head out on a pub crawl through the sort of nightlife district of Hong Kong. Most of the players, though, go home early because, they're flying back the next day. They've got to catch a bus to the airport at 8 a.m. Not all of them do, though. So Tony Adams, Chris Kiwomya, the striker, and Ray Parlour end up leaving the nightclub at 7 a.m. Bearing in mind they've got a coach at 8.
Straight through.
Yeah, straight through crew. They end up getting lost in what's known as the Triad area of Hong Kong. I don't even know is there a Triad area of Hong
maybe
Kong?
there was.
The
Triad control there.
Yeah, it's like Grand Theft Auto shit. That's what I think of Triads.
Anyway, so they let me set the scene for you. So they've stumbled out of this club, ended up in the Triad area of Hong Kong, absolutely battered. On one side of the street, Chris Kiwomya gets into an argument with this bloke after trying to chat up his girlfriend. So that's going on one side of the street. On the other side of the street, Ray Parlour is lobbing prawn crackers under the open bonnet of this taxi while the driver's like trying to change the oil. And Tony Adams is in the middle of the street, like surveying this sort of Renaissance scene.
Supervising.
And the taxi driver sort of looks up, bangs his head on the bonnet, and they all start laughing, and he absolutely loses the plot and grabs a machete out of his cab and starts attacking Ray Parlour, and lots of the locals like go for him as well. Ray Parlour decks this guy with a punch, and they're sort of like, what do we do? Turn to the other side of the street, and Chris Kiwomya is fighting this other bloke on the other side of the street, and Tony Adams is like, what the fuck is going on? So eventually they just decide to leg it, run around the corner and run off down the street, but they're caught up by a policeman on a moped who arrests Chris and Ray. So Tony Adams legs it back to the team hotel and wakes up the chairman to let him know what's gone on. And they've got to get their bus to the airport. So the rest of the Arsenal squad go off. Chris Kiwomya manages to get out of jail in time to join them, but Ray Parlour is still banged up in his jail cell. So he's absolutely bricky it. Apparently,
you would be, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Hong Kong.
Yeah, so a lawyer comes to see him and tells him if he's lucky, he might only get 6 months in jail.
God, in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong.
I guess Hong Kong is the UK at that point, but still.
Yeah.
Still.
They actually end up being much more lenient. So he gets a £300 fine and he issues an apology to the people of Hong Kong.
Fair enough. From the Romford Pele.
I'll do a Cobra bomb for you when I get home.
Yeah. It was very 90s as well, issuing an apology. Yeah. But anyway, so eventually he's allowed to leave and lands back in London. There's a huge media scrum. The Mirror headline is Parlour has shamed the nation, which is a bit harsh.
Yeah, scrap.
Arsenal fine him 2 weeks' wages. They also get him to pick up the fee for the lawyer, which is 12 grand. And apparently, Ray says that he was only on £400 a week at that point.
Wow.
So it's 12 grand bills.
So that's
is
like 5 months' wages.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's a pretty shit salary. I was quite surprised.
What year was that?
That was 95.
I guess he's quite young.
It's still pretty shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they get a lot from
that's like 20k
bonuses and
unless
stuff.
He was just coming through.
Yeah, he must have been on his apprentice contract still.
I don't know. That's what he says anyway. But I mean, if that salary is true, then it maybe explains another scandal that hit the Gunners that year. So earlier that season, the manager George Graham was sacked when he was caught receiving bungs from a dodgy Norwegian agent. So basically, I think a couple of years earlier, Arsenal had paid way over the odds for these two Scandinavian players, John Jensen and Paul Lidersen, who were clients of this dodgy agent. And it turned out that in exchange for that deal, George Graham had received brown envelopes of cash amounting to 425 grand.
That's a lot of money back then as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah. But I mean, maybe he was only on 400 quid a week as well. So,
but was that? Sometimes people from that era say that there was a bit of an unspoken thing that managers weren't paid that well, but they
get away with that.
They would just take bungs here and there.
Yeah, there was that story about Neil Warnock filling up the back of his boot with the mini bar from his office.
After every game, he'd make the club stock his fridge, and then every game he'd get one of the youth players to go and fill his car with everything in it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
resourceful.
I mean, there's that, and then there's taking 400 grand in cash in brown envelopes.
Agent. Yeah. Anyway, he gets banned by the FA and sacked by Arsenal.
Yeah, and that's kind of the end of George Graham as like a top. He did manage Leeds after that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, when I was reading about it basically what he did with Arsenal was basically like rejuvenate the whole team, bring in a load of youth, completely like regenerate the club. Okay, they had a bad drinking culture, but he was actually a really good manager.
He was successful. They won the league
won a
couple
lot of
times.
trophies. Yeah.
But I guess if you're taking bribes,
yeah.
and also football was just changing then, wasn't it? It was just becoming less bent.
Yeah, bit more sophisticated, a bit more modern.
Yeah.
Well, that saga sort of spelled the end of this decade of like relentless boozing and carnage, and with that, some home truths start to come out. So, in 1996. Tony Adams comes out and announces publicly that he is an alcoholic and he's in rehab.
He's the last person in Britain to realise that.
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, he admits that it's something that he's been struggling with for at least a decade, if not longer. So basically the whole period that we've been talking about, he was having some quite dark moments. He's actually been very open about it. He talks about it starting when he was a teenager as a way to cope with anxiety. And then throughout his playing career, it sort of got worse and worse, descended into these really destructive, like 4-day benders where he'd have complete blackouts, not be able to remember anything. He says he played matches drunk on a few occasions.
Fuck. I guess you can if you're a functioning alcoholic like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there was one match he got man of the match, or was that Paul Merson possibly? Anyway, but to Tony Adams' credit, he's been a really strong campaigner for people struggling with addiction. He's written 2 autobiographies, one called Sober, one called Addicted, which are both sort of accounts of like his struggles with it. He also founded Sporting Chance, which is a charity that helps sports people with addiction.
Also, those books kind of created the genre, which is like very popular now, of like sports people talking about their mental health struggles. Like that was pretty new then.
Yeah, it is very ahead of its
you
time,
think about where we're at now,
being...
which is like a lot of sports people can be really open about it, but like they just weren't before those.
Brave move.
Yeah,
and you can recognise that he had a problem and also find like there were some funny moments that we've talked about. Funny, I don't think that's a double standard.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Tweet us. I think he said that himself, that there are these just like ridiculous stories that happened basically because he was kind of just going a bit mad really on these benders, trying to like block out some sort of sadness really.
And he stayed clean, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Impressive.
I guess a lot of them use it for if you've got anxiety, nerves, you're not in a really good place. Alcohol was used back then to kind of navigate that, right? Like to numb it down a bit, whereas now people are more open about talking about it and being open.
It must have been tough as well being in that culture of the Tuesday Club where that is your entire social life and your world revolves around boozing, basically.
Sounds tiring.
It was Paul Merson as well. He struggled a lot with drugs and alcohol and gambling as well. It was a big one for him. He'd actually gone to rehab in 94 for cocaine.
Cocaine,
for cocaine. He said it reached the point where he'd be staying out all night doing gear in the cab on the way to training.
Can't be good for your heart, that.
No.
I remember him saying like I'd be like doing gear and I'd like look up from having done it and the cabbie's just like looking in his mirror, just like, what the fuck is Paul Merson doing? Coke in my cab on the way to training.
Yeah.
Mental.
Also says he lost an estimated 7 million on gambling over the years.
So why is he a bit of an everything addict, Paul Merson?
Yeah.
I guess he's a bit like your Gaza profile and everything.
Yeah.
Wonder if he liked the cowpole.
Yeah. It's a good job that Gaza moved in with him.
No, I think he said that he ended up moving to Middlesbrough and moved in with Gaza there, which he said was the worst possible thing. It was just two people who were alcoholics, basically.
We're going to do episodes on Paul Merson specifically because there are more stories on him and also Gaza's later career, right? The first half. So I guess we'll talk about.
Yeah, but I mean, it's would be remiss of us to do this episode without pointing out that the characters involved were struggling a lot with these issues during their playing careers and afterwards. So it wasn't all fun and games.
Harry Groves as well.
Harry Groves,
who I mentioned, was teetotal when he joined. Doesn't he have alcohol?
He spoke about it recently that he'd had alcohol issues as well.
Yeah.
So,
Fuck.
yeah.
Pretty bad. Ray Parlour, it never seems like he got to that point. He's a big boozer.
Yeah, he still seems quite fun.
I mean, you Google him and you like Google like Ray Parlour party, and it's like he's still in a beef
With Wayne Lineker, doing shots.
Have you Island iced tea in hand?
Yeah. Have you ever watched Harry's Heroes, which is where Harry Redknapp takes a team of like ex-players, a lot of this lot, and they go and play against a team of like German legends, and it's like a bit of a holiday thing. And like I watched one year, it was like Michael Owen's in it, but it's mainly like Paul Merson, Razor Ruddock's on it, and on it, Merson basically confronts Razor Ruddock and is like, I think you've got a drinking problem. And they're all like in tears. It's like this really
Wow.
Because Razor Ruddock, I'll be honest, he came across badly and I thought he was just a bully. But there's like this moment where they're all confronting him and you're like, fucking hell. Dave Seaman's in it actually, just sort of like,
being a good boy in
the
corner.
Just being a good boy. getting a bit close to one of the production assistants, I thought. That's a joke, by the way. That did not happen.
Supervising his balcony, making sure no one's doing anything up all night.
Yeah, it's the one vice that Mercy still sticks with is just shitting on people's stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, obviously, as you said, Zach, it wasn't all fun and games. And things changed for good in 1996 when a gangly, spectacled Frenchman arrives at the Arsenal training ground. It's Arsène Wenger, who, I remember he arrived. He's a bit of an enigma. People were like, he's got a weird background. He'd managed in Switzerland and Japan. And even like the team in Switzerland were called Grasshopper. And you're like, who is this guy? I think people were a bit unsure about him, Arsenal fans. But Arsène will come to revolutionise, I would argue, professional sport in general. Yeah. Because he instantly sets about changing the players' diets. So he gets rid of the roast dinners.
Gutted. Gutted.
Presumably that's some sort of like carvery chef who's now out of a job. That was a full-time gig.
Bold gutted.
Suddenly just having put away loads of protein shakes on the bus bag. So the roast dinners are gone.
How many creatine injections can you have?
Yeah.
In comes pasta and boiled chicken. And Arsène actually introduces creatine and vitamin injections to the English game. Famously, he bans Mars bars. So on top of their roast dinners, they would always have a Mars bar on the coach back. But Arsène very early on is just like, you're not having chocolate? What are you doing? And this apparently early on in his tenure leads to a moment where on the coach back from a game, all the Tuesday club who are at the back of the bus, obviously. Where else would they be? They're all just chanting, "We want our Mars bars! We want our Mars bars!"
Surprised they don't want the booze.
You can imagine Arsène just sort of looking back.
Yeah.
No, there will be no Mars bars today.
Sipping on a sparkling water.
Yeah. He does clamp down on the boozing as well, obviously.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if he's involved with Tony Adams' sort of like cleaning up of his act, but he certainly stops all the boozing. So actually, Wenger had grown up living above a pub. His parents ran a pub in this small village in northern France. And he says that he actually owes his career to that because he would overhear all these conversations about tactics from these presumably clueless punters in the pub.
Yeah.
You can imagine just people being like, we're not getting stuck into him enough. But he became fascinated by tactics. And he also came to the conclusion that drink ought not to touch the lips of a player, which I think is probably a good rule.
You can go two ways when you grow up.
Yeah, in a pub. Yeah.
So either no drop of alcohol should pass the lips,
or you're going in.
Or you end up.
Or Saturday mornings are for boozing. Yeah. In my experience, I've met both types. Anyway, also one of Arsene's big changes is that he introduces training on Wednesdays. The Tuesday club was over. I just imagine this idea that like one Tuesday, Wenger's like looking around the dressing room. He's like, okay, I will see you tomorrow, 8 a.m. And Tony Adams is there like slipping into his snake skin and
just
the sequin waistcoat. And he just looks up and he's like, tomorrow's Wednesday, boss. He's like, I will see you tomorrow, Tony, 8 a.m. for training. Some habits do die hard, though. At the end of the first season, they go on a post-season tour. And Wenger's like, he's got things a bit under control by this point. Obviously, Arsenal are doing well, so people listen to him. And he says no drinking for 14 days. And they go along with it. But on the last day of the tour, Wenger lets them out. And 5 of the English lads all head straight out to a nearby bar. And new signing Gilles Grimondi, he's kind of intrigued. He wants to kind of get to know his teammates a bit more. So he's like, I will come along, yes? And they're like, yeah, come along. So they get there and they're like, Gilles, what are you drinking? And she was like, glass of white wine, a dry white wine would be nice. And so they walk into the bar and Steve Bold goes, right, we'll have 1 glass of dry white wine and 35 pints, please, which is 7 each. So why do you need them all in one go?
Love that.
Just lock them in.
What is Jules Grimandi thinking?
Yeah, he said later, Gilles Grimandi said, I was only starting to speak English, but I like good company, so I wanted to go. I went one day and met many good drinkers. I said to Ray Parlour soon after, I need to go home or I'm going to die. Ray was laughing.
The cultural differences are mad, aren't they?
Yeah, I love it. Well, yeah, the story goes on that apparently they all stumble out of this bar pissed and they look across the road and the French contingent in the club, because you've got like Remy Gard, I guess maybe Manu Petit by this point, they're all sat at a cafe and they're just chaining cigarettes with an espresso. And Ray Parlour says, I thought, how are we going to win the league if we're pissed and they're smoking?
Yeah.
But they won the double next season.
He described it as the Cribs in the West Side. Like, when it starts to kick up, they're like, these French fuckers just smoking all day, and then you've got all the boozers. It's like, wow.
The smoking goes on for a lot longer than the boozing, doesn't it, in football?
Yeah.
Like, even now, there's a bit of it.
You can just imagine like Emmanuel Petit at the back of the bus just having a sophisticated
Galois,
cigarette.
What, and Steve Bold's got 7 pints in his hand.
Well, not then, he's got his created then.
Mix it in, goes well with the beer. And that is sort of the end of that era, isn't it, Arsene? I mean, he then starts to ship out some of the bigger drinkers too. So Paul Merson only lasted a season under Wenger. And he was still, some people say, at the peak of his powers, but I think maybe Wenger was a bit like, it's this guy. For all his talent,
quite a culture fit.
Yeah.
He went to Middlesbrough and then Portsmouth, right?
Yeah.
That was a bit of a surprise at the time because Middlesbrough were Championship.
Yeah, it was biggest transfer fee ever in Football League.
Wow.
But yeah, I guess he was sort of not fitting Arsene's new, because Arsene then kicks on the health stuff even more.
Yeah. Either stay with Arsene Wenger or move in with Gaza.
Yeah.
I know what I'm gonna do.
You're at a fork in the road, my friend. A big one. Tony Adams obviously stays clean and carries on captaining Arsenal till 2002.
Yeah.
Season before the Invincibles, so he misses out on that. But he wins another double. He has a pretty amazing career. Yeah. I was looking, his management career that he goes on to is quite unusual. So he manages Wycombe Wanderers, Portsmouth, Gabala, who are in Azerbaijan, and then Granada.
That is fucking
southern
random.
Spain, yeah. Another one I just wanted to mention in Charlie Nicholas. I mean, he leaves Arsenal in 1988. He's not really part of the story, but Champagne Charlie, he's a funny character. And have you ever seen the clip of him on Soccer Saturday with Jeff Stelling?
No.
It's pretty funny. It's miscellaneous to this podcast, but it's good.
They're looking the part, aren't they, Charlie?
Yeah, they're still playing some nice football, Jeff. And I tell you another thing, Pennett's just whipped in a beautiful free kick. DJ Campbell just slightly offside. He should have timed his run, and suddenly he was in and goal. Offside given against him. Just before that,
You should have gone to Specsavers, Charlie, because I'll tell you what, he's not offside.
Well,
he's absolutely bang in line, not offside.
well, maybe you should go also then, Jeff, because you couldn't see driving home the other night because you don't even wear your glasses in TV in case you get slagged off. So you just stick to Specsavers and I'll do the game.
I'll tell you what, I look very educated in my specs. I'll wear them for you one week, I promise.
That was unreal. Love that.
Well, you don't even wear them when you're driving home. Worried about getting slagged off. So good.
That's a proper bit of Scottish fire there. Do you know what I mean? He's got a bit of fire in his belly.
Don't fucking have a go at me on TV.
I was actually reading that Celtic fans hated the fact he went to Arsenal. Apparently he was like the absolute poster boy at Celtic and they thought he should have done a different move.
And like Celtic are giants at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, just thought I'd chuck that in. And then finally, Ray Parlour, probably the one man who keeps flying the flag for the Tuesday Club into the 21st century and indeed into the 2020s. Because have you ever seen his tribute for the late Queen when she died?
What a lovely lady, and we're so sad and we're going to miss her dearly, I promise you. So there's got to be a Cobra bomb for the Queen. I'm sure she didn't drink Cobra bombs. I'm sure she had a little tipple somewhere along the line, but I don't know what she used to drink. But what a great lady she is, and good luck to King Charles. But for the Queen, I've got to do a Cobra bomb first. Even if she don't like Cobra, I'm sure she'll be looking down hopefully and saying, oh, thanks Ray, I really appreciate that. So here we go to the Queen. Rest in peace. Cheers everyone.
Thanks, Ray. Really appreciate it.
He's absolutely steaming doing this. He's got to be.
What's in a Cobra bomb?
It's just Cobra. And
Jaeger.
Jägermeister.
Oh, it's Cobra beer.
Yeah, Cobra beer, Cobra
Right.
bomb.
Has he got some sort of deal with Cobra or something?
Well, he hasn't got anything out. But it's just such a weird scenario. Like, where is he?
I think it's any excuse, really.
Yeah, in his games room, I think.
My favourite part is like, I don't know if the Queen even liked Cobra, but
Fuck it, I want one. It's what she would have wanted.
Yeah.
Because I hope she's looking down now saying,
Cheers.
thanks, Ray.
I'm sure she was.
Bizarre. So I guess all that's left really is the verdict on the Tuesday Club. Like, you know, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of fun. Do you think it was fun?
I reckon it was fun at the time.
Yeah.
But then looking back on it now, there's so many.
Got very out of hand.
Yeah, dark.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were having fun. I don't know, it was probably ups and downs, I think, for all of them. There was probably a lot of fun was being had.
Yeah.
But also behind closed doors,
Quite a lot of the opposite.
sadness.
I think it was generally football culture back then as well. It wasn't just isolated to Arsenal. I think most of the clubs probably had the...
Yeah, I mean, there are stories like that from lots of teams, right? Even like the Crazy Gang one we did. There's quite a lot of boozing and obviously Gaza and stuff. But I guess this is unique because it was so like organised.
Yeah.
Yeah. They branded it.
Yeah, giving yourselves a name does sort of entrench the culture.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. All right. Well, I mean, there's no actual verdict here, but some of our listeners on Reddit have been asking us to bring back the wrongin' ratings. Do you remember we used to do those?
I don't, but...
We like early on, we'd sort of be like, were they a wrongin' or not? It doesn't have to be a score out of 10, but like, do you think they were wrongins?
I think if a lot of them have sorted their shit out, right? So if you look at Tony Adams, he's like, recognised he's got a problem.
Yeah.
And
Even Merson.
And Merson as well. So is 1 the most wrong and 10...
Yeah, called 10's a wrongin'.
I'm going to go like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think they're nice guys who got a bit overexcited for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they didn't cause harm apart from to themselves.
Yeah.
Which
Well, hang on, what about the taxi driver?
Yeah, what about those prawn crackers that went in the bonnet?
Yeah.
His oil change was completely wrecked.
Yeah.
I guess binary, wrongin' or not, I'm going not.
No,
Yeah.
definitely
All right.
not.
Lovely. Here endeth the lesson. JB, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, chaps. Enjoyed that.
Zach, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm off for a Cobra bomb. Thanks a lot for listening.